She's not the traitor. My wife is. The Duke shouts before the royal council to defend the maid. Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from. The Royal Council Chamber of Madrid was a storm contained within walls of marble and gold. The banners of the crown hung motionless above the heads of men who whispered like winds about to break. At the far end, before the throne of the young queen, a girl stood alone. Pale, small, her wrists trembling above the folds of a plain grey dress. Her name was Isabel Mejia, and she had been a maid in the household of the Duke of Escalona since childhood. Yet that morning she was no longer a servant. She was an accused traitor of the Spanish crown. A clerk read aloud the charges, his voice cracking with both fear and satisfaction. For delivering private letters of Her Majesty to foreign hands, for concealing jewels belonging to the royal treasury, for betraying the confidence of the noble house she served. The words rolled on, each one striking her like a lash. Isabel's hands clasped together, knuckles white. "Your Majesty," she whispered, "I am innocent." Her voice barely reached the dais. Ministers leaned forward to hear her, but their faces showed only boredom or contempt. The Queen, regal and still, raised one gloved hand. "Who accuses her?" Don Emilio Vargas, Minister of State, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, the evidence speaks plainly. A sealed packet of letters addressed to the French envoy was found beneath her mattress. The missing jewels, gifts meant for Your Majesty's sister, were recovered from her chest. No one else had access to those chambers." Gasps fluttered through the hall. Eyes turned to the accused, then to the benches where the nobility sat. Among them, one man leaned forward slightly, his expression unreadable. The Duke of Escalona, Raphael. The Queen's gaze shifted toward him. "Your household is at the center of this matter, Duke. Do you acknowledge the charges?" Raphael rose, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the polished floor. "I acknowledge the accusations, Your Majesty," he said calmly, "but not their truth." The ministers exchanged quick glances. Don Emilio's smile barely hid irritation. "Then perhaps His Grace believes his own maid more trustworthy than the Crown's counsel." "I believe in justice," Raphael replied, his voice deep but restrained. A murmur ran through the chamber. Every word uttered by the Duke carried weight. He was a man admired for his service in the wars of the North, respected for loyalty and, until that day, untouched by scandal. Isabel's eyes lifted to him. She had not expected defense, not even a word. Her heart hammered with something between hope and dread. Don Emilio raised a document. "This is the maid's confession, signed and witnessed." "I did not sign that," Isabel cried suddenly. "That paper was forced upon me." The guards stiffened. The Queen's brow furrowed. "Forced?" "Yes, Your Majesty," Isabel stammered, tears breaking through. "They told me the Duke's name would be shamed if I did not. They said—" She stopped herself, frightened by the eyes fixed on her. Raphael took one step forward. "Who said this to you?" Before she could answer, Don Emilio cut in smoothly. "A desperate girl will say anything to save herself, perhaps even accuse the innocent." The Queen gestured for silence. "Bring the document here." As a page carried the paper forward, Raphael's gaze caught a familiar seal impressed on the corner, the Escalona crest. His chest tightened. That seal belonged to his wife's private stationery. He felt the air change, heavy with realization, but he said nothing yet. Across the chamber, his wife sat among the noble ladies, serene in silks the color of frost. The Duchess Lucia de Escalona. Her beauty had once charmed courts. Her wit had guided many intrigues. Now she watched the trial with the calm detachment of someone confident in victory. The Queen examined the document briefly. "It bears the seal of the Duke's household. This alone binds the matter to your name, my lord." Raphael inclined his head. "So it would seem, Your Majesty." "Then have you no explanation?" Don Emilio asked, triumphant. For a moment, silence ruled the room. Every noble leaned forward, eager for scandal, for blood. Isabel's breath hitched as she waited. The Duke's voice came low but firm. "If the seal of my house was used, then the betrayal lies within my house, but not where you claim it," Don Emilio sneered. "Your words are clever, Duke, yet they will not clear your servant's guilt." Raphael turned toward the Queen, his eyes burning with a restrained fire. "Your Majesty, with your leave, I would speak the truth, even if it brings ruin to myself. The Queen nodded once. Speak. Raphael looked toward Isabel, then to the crowd, then at last to his wife. His heart pounded, but his voice did not shake. She is not the traitor. Gasps rippled. He took one step forward, voice rising like thunder. The traitor is my wife. For a heartbeat, time seemed to stop. Ministers froze. Ladies pressed gloved hands to their mouths. The Queen's eyes widened, a flicker of disbelief crossing her composed face. Lucia rose slowly from her seat, her complexion draining to white. Raphael, she whispered, have you lost your mind? Would you have me lose my soul instead? He answered. The Queen struck her scepter lightly against the dais. Explain yourself, Duke. These are grave words. He bowed his head briefly. I speak only what I know. The seal upon that letter belongs to my wife's private desk. None but she and her maid had access. The handwriting, look closely, belongs not to this girl, but to another hand entirely, one that has written in my house for years. Don Emilio strode forward, his voice sharp. This is madness. You dare accuse the Duchess herself? Raphael turned toward him. I accuse no one without cause, but I have seen the same hand upon letters sent to the French envoy, and those letters bear my wife's name in cipher. Lucia's lips parted in outrage, yet no words came. The Queen rose slightly. You bring proof of this? Only what remains after fire, Raphael replied. A fragment of her correspondence recovered from the ashes in her study. It bears the same seal, the same ribbon. Lucia found her voice at last, trembling but cold. He lies. This is vengeance for my refusal to obey his pride. My husband wishes to cast shame upon me because you were found with the minister's ring hidden among your jewels, Raphael cut in, his tone steady, his eyes sorrowful rather than cruel. A murmur surged again. Don Emilio turned scarlet. Lies, Your Majesty. The Duke would slander 2 loyal servants of the crown to save a common maid. Raphael's hands tightened at his sides. This maid is more loyal than half the court, Minister. The Queen raised her hand. Enough. Her voice, quiet yet commanding, silenced them all. This chamber is not a market for accusations. The council will withdraw to deliberate. The clerk announced a recess. Guards motioned for Isabel to be taken aside. She turned once toward the Duke, her face pale but her eyes lit with something like gratitude. As the crowd broke into murmurs, Lucia approached her husband with the grace of someone walking toward battle. Her voice was low but sharp. You have ruined us both. Raphael looked at her. Truth ruins only those who fear it. You think they will believe you over me? She hissed. You think a servant's tears will cleanse your name? The Queen will see you stripped of title before the day ends. He studied her face, searching for some trace of the woman he had once admired. If the truth costs me my name, I will pay it. Her eyes glinted. And if the girl dies for it? He flinched. I would see her condemned. She is already condemned, Lucia said softly, almost tenderly. Only your madness keeps her breathing. Before he could answer, Don Emilio approached, bowing to the Duchess. Your Grace, perhaps we should retire. The Queen will soon demand calm heads. He turned to Raphael with a thin smile. My lord, I suggest you prepare your apology. Her Majesty will expect one. Raphael did not reply. When they left, he stood alone in the echoing hall. The courtiers whispered around him like shadows. He could feel their eyes on his back, their judgments forming before the truth could breathe. A page hurried to him, pale and frightened. My lord, Her Majesty requests your presence privately before the council reconvenes. He followed, his steps echoing through the corridor of mirrors that led to the royal antechamber. The Queen stood by a tall window, light falling on her face. She turned without smile or anger. You have made a dangerous claim, Duke. I know, Your Majesty. Do you have proof enough to stake your life upon it? I have no choice. The Queen studied him for a long moment. I believe you are an honorable man, Raphael, but honor alone cannot shield you. If what you say of the Duchess is false, I must see you stripped of rank. If it is true, she paused, then this court stands upon treason itself. I will find the proof, he said quietly. Then you have until the council reconvenes tomorrow. He bowed deeply. Your Majesty's mercy is my command. When he returned to his residence that night, the corridors of Escalona House were silent. The servants avoided his gaze. His wife's chamber door was closed, the faint scent of perfume lingering in the hall. He entered his study, where candlelight fell upon the remnants of burned papers. Among them lay the fragment of a ribbon, blue silk, the Duchess's favourite. He sat, exhausted, the weight of the court pressing upon his shoulders. Somewhere below, in the servants' quarters, Isabel's small room stood empty. He could not rest while she awaited judgment for a crime she had not committed. Outside, the bells of Madrid rang for vespers. He rose, turning toward the window, whispering a prayer not for himself, but for the girl whose courage had cost her everything. In the palace, as the Queen retired to her private chambers, Don Emilio slipped through a side door and found Lucia waiting. "He will destroy us," she murmured. "Not if we destroy him first," he replied. "By morning, he will be the one accused." Lucia's trembling hands steadied. "Then make it so." The minister bowed. "It is already in motion." The next dawn, a messenger galloped through the gates of Escalona House, pounding on the doors until the guards awoke the Duke. He brought a sealed order from the crown, its wax still warm. Raphael broke the seal and read in silence. The letter commanded that Isabel Mejia be kept under arrest until further evidence proved her innocence, or his guilt. He lifted his eyes toward the horizon, where the palace towers caught the first light of day. In his chest, anger and fear collided like opposing storms. The Queen had not condemned the girl yet, but neither had she spared her. And now every noble in Madrid waited for the downfall of the man who had dared to defy them. The next morning, Madrid woke to whispers that could not be silenced. Every salon, every street, every café hummed with a single question. Had the Duke of Escalona lost his mind? Some said he was bewitched by a servant girl. Others claimed his wife had betrayed him first. Whatever the truth, the city waited for the next act of the scandal. At Escalona House, Raphael walked through corridors that seemed to shrink around him. Servants bowed too quickly, spoke too softly. Their eyes followed him, not with respect, but with fear. Lucia's door remained closed since dawn. From within came the muffled sound of sobbing. Whether genuine or performed, he could not tell. He stopped before the window overlooking the courtyard. The carriage that had taken Isabel to the palace prison still bore his crest. A mark of shame, he thought, a symbol of how easily innocence could be crushed by rank. His steward, Don Ramiro, entered quietly. "My lord, the Minister of State has demanded a statement from your grace. He awaits you at the palace." Raphael nodded. "Tell them I will come." As he turned to leave, a soft voice spoke from the staircase. "You will go alone." Lucia appeared, wrapped in a black shawl, though the morning was warm. Her eyes were red, her expression a perfect portrait of wounded dignity. "I will not hide," he said. "You mistake prudence for hiding," she replied. "The Queen will not forgive public humiliation, nor will her ministers. You have placed our name at their mercy." "Our name," he repeated bitterly. "You speak of honor as if it were not already sold." She drew closer, lowering her voice. "You think they will believe your word over mine. You have no proof, only suspicion, and suspicion is easily turned." He met her gaze without flinching. "Then we shall see who truth favors." Her eyes glinted, cold as steel. "Be careful, Raphael. Even truth can destroy the man who speaks it." He left her standing on the stairs, her warning echoing behind him. At the palace, the council gathered once more, but not in the grand chamber. The Queen had ordered a private inquiry before her closest advisers. Don Emilio Vargas stood among them, his expression composed and patient. The Queen addressed Raphael first. "Duke of Escalona, you have accused your wife of treason. Do you still maintain this claim?" "I do, Your Majesty." "And you have evidence?" "I have fragments, enough to show that the seal upon the letters could only have come from her desk, enough to prove that my servant was framed." Don Emilio bowed lightly. "Your Majesty, these fragments amount to nothing but ashes. The Duchess herself has given a full account of the matter. She admits to lending her seal to her maid for household correspondence. The girl must have used it to disguise her own treachery." Raphael turned sharply. "That is false, and you know it." The Queen raised her hand. "You will both speak in turn. Minister, you claim the Duchess lent her seal." "Indeed, Your Majesty. Her Grace wished to spare the Duke small domestic matters. She trusted her servant, and that trust was betrayed. Raphael's jaw tightened. My wife has never lent anything she feared would not return profit. The Queen's eyes flicked toward him, warning him to keep his composure. We are not here for marital quarrels, we are here for truth. Lucia entered then, escorted by 2 ladies of the court. She wore mourning colours again, a widow's choice, as though already grieving the death of her reputation. When she curtsied, the entire room seemed to bow with her. Your Majesty, she said softly, I come not to defend myself, but to save my husband from his own delusion. He has been under great strain, the burdens of his duty, the loss of his father, perhaps even the affection of this maid who may have sought his pity for her own ends. The Queen's brows rose slightly. You imply impropriety. Lucia lowered her eyes, her voice trembling. I imply only weakness. A noble heart deceived by a commoner's charm. It is not treason, Your Majesty. It is tragedy. The silence that followed was suffocating. Don Emilio's lips curved faintly. The ministers exchanged looks of polite horror. Raphael could feel the weight of every stare pressing against him. He stepped forward. Your Majesty, if I may speak plainly— You may not, Lucia interrupted suddenly, turning toward him. You have said enough to shame us all. I will not allow you to destroy what remains of our name. Raphael's voice broke through hers, deep and steady. It is you who have destroyed it. The Queen struck her scepter lightly against the table. Enough. I will not hear another word in anger. The matter will rest until tomorrow. The council will reconvene when evidence is presented. Until then, the maid remains in custody. Raphael bowed. As Your Majesty commands. When the session ended, Lucia swept past him without a word. Don Emilio followed her, whispering something he could not hear. Their closeness was enough to twist his stomach with certainty. Later that day, the Queen's envoys arrived at Escalona House. They carried a sealed notice demanding the Duke's cooperation in the continued investigation. He was to refrain from leaving Madrid until the inquiry concluded. The city watched him fall. In the salons, noble ladies sighed over his misfortune. Gentlemen whispered that he had lost not only his honor but his sanity. Even his servants avoided his eyes. That night, Raphael sat alone in his library. The clock ticked without mercy. Somewhere in the courtyard, horses stamped restlessly, ready for journeys he could no longer take. He poured a glass of brandy and stared at the dark liquid without drinking. The door opened quietly. Don Ramiro entered once more. My lord, a messenger has arrived from the palace prison. Raphael's head lifted. From Isabel? Yes, my lord. She begs to see you. She says she knows who betrayed her. Raphael rose at once, his weariness forgotten. Prepare my carriage. The palace dungeon was cold and damp, its corridors echoing with the distant murmur of guards. When Raphael entered, the warden hesitated. Your Grace, the prisoner is under royal command. Visits are forbidden. I am under royal command as well, Raphael replied. And I am not here to visit, I am here to investigate. He pushed past before the man could argue. The torchlight flickered across the narrow cell where Isabel sat upon a wooden bench, her hands clasped in prayer. When she saw him, she rose quickly. My lord! Her voice broke with relief. Are you harmed? No, my lord, only frightened. He stepped closer. The iron bars between them felt heavier than stone. You sent word that you knew something. Speak quickly. They will not let me stay. She nodded. When they arrested me, they took me to a small chamber before bringing me here. There was a man there, one of the Duchess's servants. He told me to confess. He said the Duchess herself had ordered it. He promised that if I did, I would be released quietly. Raphael's hands tightened around the bars. His name? Pedro, the footman who once carried letters to the palace. I know him. There is more, she whispered. When they brought me here, I saw the same man handing a packet to one of the guards. He said it was from the minister. I heard the guard say, The Duke must not know. Raphael's jaw clenched. They mean to bury the truth. I do not care for myself, she said, tears spilling. But they will ruin you, my lord. He leaned closer, his voice low and fierce. Let them try. I will not allow them to use you as their shield. The echo of boots interrupted them. The warden's voice came from the corridor. "Your Grace, time is over." Raphael hesitated, then whispered, "Hold faith, Isabel, I will find the proof." She nodded, trembling. "God keep you, my lord." He turned away before she could see the fury in his face. Outside, rain had begun to fall. The city glistened under the lamps as his carriage rumbled through the narrow streets. In his mind, the pieces of the plot assembled themselves: Lucia's seal, Don Emilio's hand, the frightened footman named Pedro. When he reached Escalona House, the servants scattered before him. He called for Ramiro. "Find Pedro, bring him here tonight." Quietly. Ramiro bowed and hurried away. Hours passed. Midnight came. The fire burned low. Raphael sat waiting, the storm outside matching the one inside his chest. Finally the door opened, and Ramiro entered, pale and nervous. "My lord, Pedro is gone." "Gone? His quarters are empty, his belongings left behind. The guards at the palace gate say he departed with a travel permit signed by the minister himself." Raphael closed his eyes for a long moment. "Then they move faster than I thought. What shall we do, my lord?" "Tomorrow I will appeal to the Queen again. She must hear what I have discovered." "And the Duchess?" He looked toward the staircase where a faint light shone beneath her door. "She will play her part until the end, but the mask will break." The storm raged on through the night. Before dawn, a knock sounded at the study door. It was the steward again, drenched and trembling. "My lord, I beg your pardon, but there is news from the palace." Raphael rose. "Speak." "They have ordered the maid transferred to a convent outside the city until judgment is reached. The escort leaves within the hour." Raphael's face hardened. "By whose command?" "The minister's signature, my lord, approved by Her Majesty's council." He reached for his coat. "Saddle my horse." "My lord, the order forbids interference." Raphael's voice cut through the air. "Then I shall interfere." Moments later, he rode through the empty streets, the wind tearing at his cloak. The road to the convent wound through the hills beyond Madrid, a grey ribbon under a pale sky. As he galloped, he prayed silently that he might reach them before harm could come. When he reached the gates, the carriage stood there, its doors open, the guards arguing with the sisters. Raphael dismounted. "Where is the prisoner?" The elder nun shook her head. "She was not in the carriage when it arrived, my lord." The guards stammered. "We swear, your grace, she was there when we departed." Raphael's heart stopped. He stepped toward the empty carriage, staring at the seat where Isabel should have been. The blanket lay folded, untouched. The iron cuffs hung loose. The wind carried the faint toll of a bell from the convent tower, a sound that seemed to mock the silence that followed. Raphael turned toward the horizon, his voice breaking the air. "Then where is she?" The convent courtyard was still when Raphael stood there, rain dripping from the brim of his hat. The guards kept repeating the same words, swearing she had been in the carriage when they left Madrid. One of them showed the Duke the travel permit with the minister's seal. The ink was still fresh, as if written in haste. "She was quiet the whole way, your grace," one guard muttered. "When we stopped for the night, she said nothing. In the morning the carriage was locked. We rode on. Only when we reached the gates did we see she was gone." Raphael looked into the empty carriage again. There were no signs of struggle, only the faint trace of a torn ribbon on the seat. Isabel's ribbon. He straightened slowly. "You will say nothing of this to the palace, not a word." The guards hesitated. "But, my lord—" "I said nothing," he repeated. His tone left no space for disobedience. They saluted, uneasy. Raphael turned his horse and rode back toward the city, the wind cutting through his coat. He could feel the noose tightening. Someone had arranged her disappearance with precision. Every path he took was already watched. He knew only one thing. Don Emilio Vargas had planned this, and Lucia had helped him. By the time he reached Madrid, the city was stirring. The Queen's banners fluttered over the palace towers. In the narrow streets, vendors shouted their morning cries, unaware that a woman's life had vanished in silence. At Escalona House, Lucia sat in the drawing room surrounded by letters. She looked up as he entered, calm as ever. "Back so soon?" she asked. "Did the nuns welcome your lost saint?" He walked toward her slowly. "You knew she would never reach the convent." Her hand trembled slightly, though her smile remained. "You think I had something to do with it? I know you did. Then prove it." He stared at her. I will. Lucia rose, smoothing her gown. You forget yourself, Raphael. The Queen already doubts you. If you continue this madness, you will lose everything. Perhaps it is time you remembered who you are. I remember too well, he said. It is you who have forgotten. For a moment, they stood in silence, two enemies who shared a name. Then she turned away, her voice low. You will never find her. He left without replying. That afternoon, he sent word through every contact he still trusted. Soldiers who owed him favors, clerks who remembered his service. He offered rewards quietly, promising gold to anyone who could trace the route of the missing carriage. Hours passed with no message. As evening fell, a knock came at his study door. Don Ramiro entered again, breathless. My lord, there is someone to see you, a man who claims to have news. Bring him. A stable boy entered, mud on his boots, cap in hand. He looked no older than 15. Beg pardon, Your Grace. I drive carts for the convent. Yesterday I saw a carriage stopped by the river road. Two riders were talking to the guards. One of them gave the driver a purse of silver. Then they turned toward the hills instead of the convent. What did the riders look like? Raphael asked. One was tall, wore a dark coat. The other had a scar on his cheek. I think he worked for the Duchess once. I've seen him before near your house. Raphael's pulse quickened. Pedro? The boy nodded quickly. Yes, sir. That was his name. Raphael pressed a coin into the boy's hand. Say nothing of this to anyone. When the boy left, Raphael turned to Ramiro. Have 2 horses saddled. We ride tonight. My lord, you mean to follow them? Yes. And if I am correct, we will find them near the minister's estate. The moon hung low over the countryside as they rode. The fields stretched silent and dark, broken only by the glint of distant villas. They rode for hours, following faint wheel tracks until the road split near a grove of cypress. There, a faint light flickered between the trees. Raphael dismounted, motioning Ramiro to stay behind. He moved quietly, his boots sinking into damp earth. Ahead stood a small hunting lodge, half hidden by ivy. A horse was tied outside. Inside, voices murmured. He crept closer, enough to hear. She will not speak, a woman's voice said, Lucia's voice. She will, answered a man. Everyone speaks when they lose hope. Raphael's heart pounded. He edged closer until the doorway came into view. Through a crack, he saw Isabel seated on a chair, her hands bound. Her face was pale, but her eyes burned with defiance. Lucia stood before her, elegant even in the flicker of lamplight. Don Emilio paced nearby, holding a folded paper. This is the confession, Lucia said quietly. Sign it, and you will live. I will not, Isabel replied. Her voice shook, but her chin lifted. I will not lie. Lucia's eyes narrowed. You will, if you wish to see tomorrow. Don Emilio stepped forward impatiently. Enough, Your Grace. Let me handle her. You will not touch her, Lucia said sharply. She may yet be useful. Isabel met her mistress's gaze. You hate me because he defended me. But he defended me because you betrayed him. Lucia's hand twitched as if to strike her, but she stopped herself. You know nothing of betrayal. You are a servant. Stay in your place. I was loyal when you were false, Isabel said, and God sees everything. Raphael's chest burned. He could no longer wait. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. Lucia spun around, her eyes widening. Don Emilio froze. Isabel gasped his name. Raphael, Lucia breathed. What are you doing here? I might ask you the same. Don Emilio moved toward him, trying to recover composure. Your Grace, this is not what it seems. No? Raphael's eyes were fixed on Isabel. Then explain why she is bound. Why the minister of the crown hides in my wife's company at midnight. Lucia's poise faltered for the first time. I wanted only to make her confess, to spare you further shame. By force? Don Emilio stepped between them. You have gone too far, Duke. Leave now, before you make this worse. Raphael's voice cut through the air. It cannot be worse. They faced each other, the air thick with tension. The minister's hand twitched toward his coat, where a letter protruded from the pocket. Raphael saw it and lunged forward, seizing it before Don Emilio could react. Lucia cried out, but Raphael already had the paper open. It was a letter addressed to the French envoy, signed with his wife's seal. The silence that followed was deadly. Raphael folded the paper slowly. So this is what loyalty looks like. Lucia's lips trembled. "You do not understand." "I understand enough." He turned to Isabel, cutting the ropes from her wrists. She stood unsteadily, her eyes full of shock and gratitude. "Go," he said softly. "Wait outside." She hesitated. "They will—" "Go," he repeated. When she had gone, Raphael faced them both. "You will answer to the Queen for this." Don Emilio sneered. "Do you think she will believe you? By dawn the whole court will say you abducted your own servant, that you forged this letter yourself, and when they find her, they will call her your accomplice." Raphael's hand tightened around the letter. "Then I must reach Her Majesty before you do." He turned for the door, but Lucia's voice stopped him. "Raphael, if you walk out now, everything we built will fall. It already has." He left them standing there, the letter clutched like a weapon of truth. Outside, Isabel waited beside the horses. The wind lifted her hair as she turned to him. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No, my lord, only frightened." "Then ride. We must reach the palace before sunrise." They rode through the darkness, the road twisting through fields and orchards. Behind them distant hooves echoed, Don Emilio's men, perhaps, or Lucia's. The sound grew fainter as they pressed on. By dawn, the towers of Madrid appeared through the mist. The city was waking, unaware of the storm about to strike. At the palace gate, the guards crossed their spears. "The council is not yet in session, Your Grace." Raphael showed them the letter. "Tell Her Majesty I bear evidence of treason." The captain hesitated, glancing at Isabel's torn dress and pale face. "Very well, but she cannot enter." "She stays," Raphael said firmly. "She is my witness." After a moment's pause, the captain nodded and sent a messenger inside. Minutes later, the Queen's private secretary arrived. He bowed. "Her Majesty will receive you at once." The Queen waited in her private audience room, already informed of the night's scandal. She looked weary, but her gaze remained sharp. "You bring news, Duke?" Raphael placed the letter before her. "Proof of my wife's betrayal, Your Majesty, and of the minister's complicity." The Queen studied the paper silently, her expression unreadable. Then she looked up. "Do you realize what this means?" "I do." "This implicates not only your household but my council." "Then it must be purged," he said. Before she could reply, a courtier burst into the room. "Your Majesty, the Duchess and the minister demand immediate audience. They claim the Duke has abducted a prisoner and forged royal documents." The Queen's eyes met Raphael's. "It seems truth and falsehood are racing side by side." "Then may the faster one win," he answered. She rose from her seat. "I will hear all parties in the council hall within the hour. Until then, you will remain under guard, but not as a prisoner." He bowed deeply. "As Your Majesty commands." Isabel touched his sleeve lightly as the guards led them away. "They will twist everything," she whispered. "They will try," he said quietly. "But we have truth now." Yet as they walked through the marble corridor, the echo of approaching footsteps made him stop. From the far end of the hall, Lucia appeared, her face composed, her gown immaculate, as if the night's sins had never happened. She smiled faintly as she approached, the Queen's guards stepping aside to let her pass. "Good morning, husband," she said sweetly. "Did you sleep well?" He stared at her in disbelief. She leaned closer, her voice low enough for only him to hear. "Whatever proof you think you hold, it will not save you. By the time this council ends, you will be the one they call traitor." He did not answer, but the faint sound of the Queen's scepter striking marble echoed from the next chamber, calling them to appear before the full court. And as Raphael turned toward that sound, he knew the next hour would decide everything: his honor, her fate, and Isabel's life. The herald opened the council doors, and the guards motioned him forward. The Queen's council chamber was crowded once more, yet the air felt heavier than before. Nobles whispered behind gloved hands. The ministers, seated in their gold-trimmed chairs, waited like judges who had already decided the verdict. The great doors opened, and Raphael entered with Isabel beside him, followed by 2 guards. Across the room, the Duchess Lucia and Don Emilio Vargas stood together near the throne, immaculate, confident, untouchable. The Queen motioned for silence. "We reconvene to address the matter of treason within the Escalona household and the accusation that now extends to my own council. Duke of Escalona, present your evidence." Raphael bowed. Your Majesty, I have here a letter bearing my wife's seal and the minister's handwriting, addressed to the French envoy. It speaks of the movement of the royal treasury and the withdrawal of troops from Valencia. It proves correspondence with a foreign power. Gasps rose from the nobles. The Queen gestured for the document. A clerk carried it forward, placing it upon the velvet stand before her. She studied the seal, then passed it to the Minister of Justice. Is this authentic? The minister examined it. The seal is genuine, Your Majesty. The handwriting appears that of Don Emilio Vargas. Don Emilio stepped forward quickly, his calm breaking. Your Majesty, this is a forgery. The Duke is desperate to restore his honor. He and this girl have conspired to frame us both, Lucia added softly. My husband has been deceived, Your Majesty. The maid holds him in her power. The Queen's gaze fell upon Isabel. Speak truthfully, child. Were you forced to write this letter? Isabel's voice trembled, but her eyes were clear. No, Your Majesty. I was forced to carry others like it. The Duchess ordered me to deliver sealed packets to a man at the river road. When I asked what they were, she struck me and told me I would lose my position if I ever spoke. Lucia's face went pale. Lies, she whispered. All lies. Don Emilio turned to the Queen in desperation. Your Majesty, if you allow this madness, you will tear apart the nobility of Spain. The Duke is blinded by jealousy. He defends a servant to destroy his wife. Raphael's voice thundered. I defend justice. The Queen rose. Enough. This court will not drown in accusation. We will verify the letter through our own scribes. Until then, all parties shall remain under guard. Lucia lifted her chin. I am not a prisoner. You are until truth is known, the Queen answered. A murmur rippled through the chamber. The Duchess's composure faltered. For the first time, fear flickered across her features. Raphael turned to the Queen. Your Majesty, if I may speak further. You may. He took a step forward. Last night, I found the maid held captive in a lodge belonging to Don Emilio Vargas. My wife was present. The minister demanded she sign a confession admitting to treason. When she refused, they planned to silence her. I arrived before harm could come. The Queen looked to Don Emilio. Is this true? He forced a smile. Your Majesty, the Duke's imagination grows wilder each hour. If I wished to harm a servant, would I do so under the Duchess's eyes? This story is an insult to reason. The Queen's expression hardened. Your denial will be weighed against evidence. Until then, you remain within the palace walls. Don Emilio bowed stiffly. As Your Majesty commands. The council dispersed under the Queen's command. The nobles filed out in a whispering cloud of silks and murmurs. Only a handful remained, Raphael, Lucia, Don Emilio, and Isabel. When the Queen had left the chamber, Lucia turned to her husband. You think you've won? I think the truth has begun to breathe, he replied. She laughed softly, though her voice trembled. You have no idea what you've set in motion. These men you call liars are the very ones who made your title what it is. If they fall, you fall with them. Raphael studied her face for a moment. If honor must fall with them, let it fall. Don Emilio leaned close to Lucia and spoke under his breath, but Raphael caught every word. We cannot wait for trial. The Queen hesitates, but her ministers will act before she does. If the Duke lives another day, the letter will spread. Lucia's reply was barely a whisper. Then see that he does not. Raphael's gaze turned cold. Do you plot my death now, Lucia? Will you finish what deceit began? Lucia met his eyes without flinching. You brought this upon yourself. He turned to the guards. Take her to her chamber. No one enters without royal permission. The guards obeyed. Lucia's fury flashed as they led her away. When she was gone, Raphael sank into one of the council chairs. The long table stretched before him, empty of its power now that truth had touched it. Isabel stood nearby, uncertain, her hands clasped before her. My lord, she said quietly, what will become of her? He looked up. If justice lives in this palace, she will face it. And you, I will face what comes. She hesitated. You have risked everything for me. He gave a faint smile. Not for you, Isabel. For what you represent. Honesty in a world that forgot its meaning. She stepped closer, her voice soft. But I would still thank you. Raphael rose slowly, suddenly aware of the nearness between them. Save your thanks for the day you are free. Their eyes met, holding for a moment longer than either dared to admit. A door opened abruptly, breaking the silence. The Queen's secretary entered, carrying a sealed envelope. Your Grace, Her Majesty commands that you return home. You are to remain there under guard until summoned again. Raphael nodded. Tell Her Majesty I obey. The secretary hesitated before turning to Isabel. And the maid is to remain in the palace until further notice. Raphael's brow furrowed. Under whose care? Her Majesty's. She wishes the girl kept safe. Relief flickered across his face. Then she is safer here than anywhere else. The secretary bowed and left. Isabel looked at him, troubled. You must be careful, my lord. The minister will not forgive you, nor my wife, he said quietly. But neither will I forgive their lies. He left her standing in the echoing hall as he followed the guards back to Escalona House. The sun was setting when he arrived. The mansion felt like a tomb. Servants moved silently, their faces pale with fear. In the grand hall, the portraits of his ancestors stared down, proud and distant. He wondered if they would have condemned him or admired him for defying his own wife before the Queen. Don Ramiro met him at the foot of the stairs. My lord, the Duchess has been confined to her rooms. The guards stand at her door. Good, Raphael said. She must not leave. Ramiro hesitated. There is something else. A letter arrived before you. It bears no seal. Raphael took it and unfolded the paper. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the words froze his blood. They will strike tonight. Trust no one within your walls. He looked up sharply. Who delivered this? No one knows, my lord. It was found on the servants' table. Raphael's mind raced. Double the guards, lock every door, and bring me my sword. The steward hesitated. My lord, surely the danger cannot reach you here. The danger is already here, Raphael said grimly. Hours passed, and the mansion settled into uneasy silence. The moon rose above the courtyard, pale and watchful. Raphael sat alone in his study, the warning letter before him. Every creak of wood, every gust of wind sounded like an approach. Near midnight, the door opened. One of his soldiers entered. Your Grace, a messenger from the palace. Send him in. The man stepped forward, cloaked, his face half hidden. He bowed. Her Majesty sends word. The council meets again at dawn. Raphael studied him. Your voice is not familiar. Who sent you exactly? The man hesitated. The Queen's secretary. Raphael's eyes narrowed. Then you will not mind if I send a reply through you. He turned to his desk, pretending to write. When he looked up again, the man's hand had slipped beneath his cloak. Raphael seized a candlestick and struck first. The blow sent the dagger spinning to the floor. The cloaked man stumbled back, clutching his arm. You are no messenger, Raphael said coldly. The man glared at him, breathless. You should have stayed silent. Whose orders? He spat blood. Ask your wife. Before Raphael could reach him, the man dashed for the window and leapt into the courtyard below, vanishing into the night. The guards rushed in, alarmed. My lord, what happened? Raphael held up the dagger. Send word to the palace. The minister has made his move. The guards hurried away. He stood for a long moment, staring at the open window, the sound of the wind filling the empty room. Somewhere beyond the city, he knew Don Emilio and Lucia were preparing their next lie. But the letter he held, the Queen's promise of inquiry, and Isabel's testimony, these were his weapons now. He turned back toward the desk to secure the evidence he had gathered, but the drawer where he had placed the incriminating letter was open. The paper was gone. He froze, scanning the room. Only the curtains moved. Someone had entered while he fought. The candle flickered. Then from the hall outside a soft voice spoke, familiar, chilling. Looking for something, my dear husband? Lucia stood in the doorway, her silk gown ghostly in the candlelight. The letter dangled from her hand, its wax seal broken. Raphael didn't move. The guards had already gone. They were too far to hear him call if he tried. How long have you been standing there? He asked quietly. Long enough to see you strike down a man like a common criminal, she said. Her voice was calm, but her hand trembled. And long enough to take back what was never yours. That letter is proof, he said. It belongs to the Queen, she smiled faintly. Proof of what? That you are a fool who trusted a servant over your own wife? This paper will burn before it reaches Her Majesty's hands. He stepped toward her, his tone measured. If you destroy it, you condemn yourself. Then we are both condemned, she whispered. You with your pride and I with my mistakes. Her words wavered as if for a moment she might weep, but she gathered herself again. You think the Queen will save you. She will sacrifice you both to protect her throne. That girl will disappear, and you will be remembered as a jealous husband who lost his reason. Is that what you told Don Emilio? Lucia's eyes darkened. Don Emilio knows how to survive, something you never learned. She turned as if to leave, but Raphael reached her in 2 strides and seized her wrist. The letter crackled between them. You have taken everything from me, he said, his voice low. But you will not take this. She met his eyes, unflinching. Do you love her? He hesitated, then released her hand. What I feel for her has nothing to do with love, as you understand it. It is something cleaner. She reminds me of what I once was before lies poisoned this house. Lucia's expression softened for an instant. Then you are lost, Raphael. She turned away and tossed the letter into the fire. The flames swallowed it in seconds. Raphael stared as the proof he had risked his life for turned to smoke. Lucia's shoulders sagged, but her voice remained steady. It is done. We can end this now. Leave Spain with me. We can still save ourselves. He laughed once, bitterly. You would flee justice? I would flee ruin. Then go, he said. Run from the truth if you can, but I will not follow. She stood in silence, her pride collapsing under the weight of his words. Then, gathering what remained of her composure, she left without another glance. When the door closed, Raphael sank into the nearest chair. His hands covered his face. For the first time, the fight felt hopeless. The letter was gone, the minister still powerful, and the Queen, doubtful, cautious, uncertain whom to trust. Only Isabel's word remained, and her word against the Duchess's was a fragile defense. But dawn would come, and the council would meet again. He could not surrender. He rose, called for his steward, and gave quiet orders to prepare his carriage. At first light, he said, I go to the palace. The hours passed slowly. When morning came, Madrid lay under a grey sky. The palace courtyard was crowded with soldiers and courtiers whispering of the scandal that had become the Queen's shame. Raphael entered the hall alone. Isabel was already there under the Queen's protection, her face pale but resolute. Don Emilio stood beside Lucia, both serene, both dangerous. The Queen began without ceremony. We will end this today. Duke of Escalona, you were attacked last night. Yes, Your Majesty. By whose order? The assassin named my wife before he fled. Lucia gasped softly, hand pressed to her chest. You see, Your Majesty. He will destroy me before witnesses. The Queen's gaze cut between them. This cannot continue. We must have proof. I had proof, Raphael said. She burned it. Don Emilio smiled thinly. How convenient. The Queen leaned forward. Then we must hear from the witnesses. Bring the guards who escorted the maid. The doors opened. 2 palace guards entered, bowing deeply. The elder spoke first. Your Majesty, we obeyed the minister's orders. We were told to deliver the prisoner to the convent. The Queen frowned. And did you? No, Your Majesty. We were stopped on the road. A man and a woman blocked our path. They gave us gold and a paper bearing the minister's seal. They said the route had changed. Don Emilio's face hardened. Lies! The Queen's voice rose, sharp as steel. Quiet! She turned back to the guards. Would you recognize them again? Yes, Your Majesty. The younger guard pointed toward Don Emilio. The man was him. Gasps broke through the room. Don Emilio's composure cracked, his hands curling into fists. This is treachery. They have been bribed. The Queen signaled for silence. And the woman? The guards hesitated, then looked toward Lucia. Her face drained of color. No, she whispered. No, that's impossible. The Queen's tone grew colder. You deny it? Lucia turned to Raphael, her expression frantic. Tell them I would never... Raphael spoke softly, without anger. Tell them the truth, Lucia. For once. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Don Emilio stepped forward, desperate. Your Majesty, this is a conspiracy to destroy us both. The Duke orchestrated everything. The girl was his accomplice, his lover. Together, they seek your downfall. The Queen's eyes flashed. Enough! The chamber fell silent. You dare bring such chaos into my court, she said slowly. You would see my name dragged through scandal to save your pride. The time for words is finished. She turned to her captain. Place Don Emilio Vargas under arrest. The minister's protest was drowned by the clatter of guards' boots. He struggled as they seized his arms, shouting curses that echoed through the hall. Lucia stood motionless, pale as marble. Raphael bowed his head. Your Majesty, I beg mercy for her. She has been misled. The Queen regarded him quietly. You would still defend her. She is guilty of deceit, but not of treason, he said. The minister used her vanity to serve his ambition. Let her confess freely, and justice will be satisfied. Lucia's eyes filled with tears. For the first time she looked truly broken. You would spare me? I would spare what remains of my conscience, he said. The Queen nodded to her guards. The Duchess will be confined until her confession is written. She shall speak no word beyond these walls. Lucia lowered her head, whispering something Raphael could not hear as they led her away. When the chamber emptied, the Queen dismissed all but Raphael and Isabel. The silence between them was heavy but not unkind. Her Majesty spoke first. You have risked your title and perhaps your life for this servant. Why? Raphael looked at Isabel. Because she told the truth when no one else dared. Because she reminded me that justice belongs not to the powerful, but to the honest. The Queen's expression softened. Spain needs such honesty, yet it comes at great cost. She turned to Isabel. You are free. Your name shall be cleared in the record of the court. Isabel bowed, trembling. Your Majesty, I ask no reward, only peace. You shall have it, the Queen said. Go now. Rest. The council will deal with the minister's fate by nightfall. As Isabel left, Raphael lingered behind. The Queen regarded him with measured eyes. You will be summoned again soon, Duke. Until then, take care. The court remembers everything, even what it forgives. He bowed deeply. I ask for nothing but quiet, Your Majesty. Outside, the palace corridors were filled with murmurs of relief and disbelief. The ministers had been toppled, the scandal exposed. Yet Raphael felt no triumph, only a strange emptiness. He found Isabel waiting near the courtyard, her hands folded. When she saw him, she smiled faintly. It is over. For now. They walked in silence through the palace gardens, where the orange trees swayed in the evening wind. The scent of rain lingered in the air. Isabel stopped near the fountain. What will you do now? I do not know, he said honestly. The Queen may restore my honor, but not my peace. She looked at him, eyes full of quiet sadness. And your wife? She will face what she has done, he said. I can only hope mercy will find her. The light dimmed. The sound of distant bells filled the garden. Raphael turned to Isabel, his voice soft. You should not remain here. The court is no place for truth. I will see you safely to the convent before nightfall. She shook her head gently. My place is wherever God leads me, but if you wish it, I will go. He smiled faintly. Then we go together. They walked toward the gates, unaware of the eyes watching from the palace balcony above. Lucia stood there, hands gripping the rail, her face pale in the fading light. She had slipped free of her guards for a moment, unseen, unheard. Her gaze followed them as they crossed the courtyard. Below, Raphael paused to speak with a soldier, unaware of her presence. Isabel turned her head slightly as if sensing something, but the wind carried the sound of the Duchess's voice only faintly down to them. You will not leave me with silence, Raphael, she whispered. Not yet. She slipped the small key from her sleeve, the one that opened the back gate of the palace gardens, and turned toward the shadows beyond the archway, her plan already forming. The guard's voice called out below, sharp with alarm. Your Grace! Wait! Someone's approaching fast! The soldier's warning echoed through the courtyard as Raphael turned sharply. Out of the deepening dusk, a cloaked rider galloped toward the gates. The guards rushed forward, shouting for the man to halt, but the horse reared and the rider threw down a folded paper sealed with the royal crest before spurring the animal away. Raphael stooped to pick it up. The wax was still warm. He recognized the Queen's seal, but the handwriting beneath it was not hers. It was hurried, jagged, as though written in fear. "Your Grace," the captain said cautiously, "shall we open it?" "No," Raphael replied, breaking the seal himself. The note contained only one line. "The Queen doubts whom to trust. She will summon you again before dawn. Protect the maid until then." He folded it and slipped it inside his coat. "We leave the city now," he said to Isabel. "The palace is no longer safe." The guards exchanged nervous glances. "Your Grace, the Queen's orders were—" "Her safety outweighs her orders," Raphael cut in. "If the council turns again, they will use her as the last witness to destroy us both. Saddle 2 horses." The captain hesitated only a moment before obeying. Within minutes they rode out through the lesser gate under the watch of uncertain sentries. The night air was cold, the streets almost empty. Madrid slept uneasily after the day's scandal. They passed through narrow alleys and dim squares until the city fell away behind them. Ahead, the plains stretched silent under a veiled moon. Isabel clutched her cloak tightly, her face half hidden. "Where will we go?" she asked. "To the Queen's retreat at Aranjuez," he said. "There we will wait until she sends for us. It is guarded by men still loyal to me." The road was long, but the darkness protected them. They rode for hours, the hooves muffled by the dust, the wind carrying only the sound of their breathing. At last, near a grove of poplars, Raphael slowed his horse. "We will rest here for a moment," he said. They dismounted, tying the horses beneath the trees. Isabel sank to a fallen trunk, her voice barely above a whisper. "Do you think she still doubts you?" "She doubts everyone," he replied. "It is her burden to trust no one fully. Then who will speak for you when the Queen turns against you?" He looked at her. "You already have." Her eyes met his, uncertain but unwavering. "Then I will not fail you." He was about to answer when the distant sound of another horse reached them. He froze. Isabel caught her breath. The sound grew louder, steady, deliberate. Raphael drew Isabel behind the trees. The rider came into view, a lone figure cloaked and hooded. The horse stopped a few paces away. The rider dismounted, moving toward the road with caution. Raphael stepped forward. "Who goes there?" The figure turned and threw back the hood. It was the Queen's personal messenger, breathless and pale. "My lord," he gasped, "I was sent to find you. The Queen commands your immediate return. There has been an attempt—" "On whom?" Raphael demanded. "On Her Majesty herself." Isabel stifled a cry. Raphael gripped the messenger's arm. "When?" "An hour after sunset. A letter laced with poison. She lives, but the court is in uproar. The minister's allies say you fled to escape arrest." Raphael released him slowly. "So that is how they will play it." "The Queen's orders are clear," the messenger continued. "You must return before sunrise or be declared guilty by absence." Raphael turned to Isabel. "If I go back alone, they will kill me before I speak. If I take you, they will accuse me of manipulating you." "Then let me testify before the Queen myself," she said. "If she hears me once more, she will know who speaks truth." He hesitated, then nodded. "Very well." "We ride." They set off at once, the messenger leading the way. The road gleamed faintly under the moon. When the palace lights appeared on the horizon, Raphael felt a strange calm settle over him. He had faced battles and councils before, but never a trial for his own soul. As they approached the gates, the guards raised their torches. The captain stepped forward, grim-faced. "By order of the council, the Duke of Escalona is under arrest for flight from justice." "I return under the Queen's summons," Raphael said, holding up the seal. The captain examined it and frowned. "You may enter, but she is gravely ill, and the ministers hold power until she recovers." Raphael's heart sank. "Who commands the council now?" "Her Excellency the Duchess," the captain said. He froze. "Lucia?" "Yes, my lord. She claims the Queen gave her authority to act in Her Majesty's stead." The words struck him like a blow. Isabel's hand tightened around his sleeve. "It is another trap," she whispered. Raphael looked up at the looming palace. "Then let us step into it and see how deep the trap goes." Inside, the corridors blazed with candlelight. Nobles crowded the stairways, whispering and bowing as the Duke passed. Some turned away, unwilling to meet his eyes. They reached the council chamber. The great doors opened, and Lucia stood at the head of the long table, draped in black silk, her face pale but composed. Around her sat the remaining ministers, their eyes cold and watchful. She smiled faintly as Raphael entered. "How dutiful you are, husband. I feared you would not return." "I came at the Queen's command, not yours." "The Queen cannot speak," Lucia replied softly. "She rests under the physician's care. Until she recovers, I preside in her stead." Her seal confirms it. She held up a parchment bearing the royal emblem. Raphael studied her expression. "You forged that," she shrugged. "You forged worse when you accused me before the court." Don Emilio's seat was empty, his place taken by a younger minister who avoided Raphael's gaze. Lucia continued, her tone calm and deliberate. "We will settle this matter once and for all. The Duke stands accused of conspiring against the crown and of seducing his servant to aid in his plot. The maid, Isabel Mejia, stands accused of being his accomplice." Isabel flinched. "That is false." Lucia turned toward her. "You may speak when addressed." Raphael stepped forward. "You have no authority to judge. The Queen will rise again, and when she does—" Lucia cut him off. "If she does. Until then, the Council speaks for her." "And I speak for the Council." The ministers murmured in agreement, their voices like rustling paper. Raphael glanced at Isabel. "Stay behind me." Lucia's smile deepened. "Oh, how gallant. Yet she has already betrayed you, husband." He frowned. "What are you saying?" Lucia lifted another paper from the table and waved it gently. "A signed confession. She admits to forging the letter you gave the Queen, to following your instructions. In return, you promised to make her Duchess when your wife was condemned." Isabel's voice broke. "That is a lie." Lucia's tone remained smooth. "The handwriting is hers. The seal, your own." Raphael stepped forward, fury tightening his voice. "You planted it." Lucia laughed softly. "How predictable you are, always blaming me for what you cannot control." The ministers shifted uncomfortably. One of them spoke. "Your Grace, these are grave accusations. If the maid has confessed, the Council must act." "She has confessed to nothing," Raphael said sharply. "And if you wish for truth, summon her here to speak before you." Lucia nodded to the guards. "Bring her forward." They hesitated. "Your Excellency, she is here already." Raphael turned and his breath caught. Isabel was being led back into the room, paler than before, her wrists marked by the iron cuffs. She looked at him, confusion and fear in her eyes. "They took me when you rode ahead," she whispered. "They said you had sent for me." Raphael faced the ministers. "You see their lies?" Lucia's voice cut through his anger. "Enough. We are finished pretending. The Duke of Escalona has turned traitor to his sovereign. The Queen's own hand may rest, but her crown remains. Guards, arrest him." The soldiers stepped forward. Raphael did not move. "On whose authority?" he demanded. "On mine," she said. The soldiers hesitated, looking to one another. Lucia's voice sharpened. "Do it!" Before they could act, a door at the end of the chamber opened. A woman entered slowly, supported by her physician. Every head turned. It was the Queen. She was pale, her step uncertain, but her voice was clear. "No one will move." The chamber fell silent. Lucia's face froze in disbelief. The Queen's gaze swept the room. "I have heard enough whispers in my own halls. I will decide who serves me and who betrays me." Lucia recovered her poise and sank into a curtsy. "Your Majesty, forgive us. We acted only in your name." "Without my command," the Queen interrupted coldly, "and without my consent." She looked to Raphael. "You obeyed my summons?" "Yes, Your Majesty." "And you, Duchess, forged my seal to hold power in my absence." Lucia's lips parted, but no words came. The Queen's voice hardened. "The Council will reconvene in the morning. Until then, the Duchess is confined to her apartments under royal guard. The Duke will remain here under my protection. And the maid," she turned to Isabel, who stood trembling, "will be safe within the chapel until this matter ends." Lucia's eyes filled with fury and fear. "You cannot do this." The Queen raised her hand. "I already have." The guards surrounded Lucia. She fought them with words, not force, but her protests faded as they led her away down the marble corridor. Raphael bowed his head. "Your Majesty, you have saved us." The Queen's tone softened. "I have delayed judgment. not ended it. Tomorrow we will see who truly served the crown. She turned toward the chapel doors, signaling for Isabel to follow. Come, child. Tonight, you will pray for Spain. Isabel obeyed quietly, glancing back once at Raphael as the queen led her away. The duke remained standing in the empty hall, the echo of Lucia's defiance still ringing in his ears. Then, far in the distance, a bell tolled, a sound that did not belong to the chapel. It came from outside the palace walls, deep and urgent, as if warning of something unseen approaching through the city streets. The tolling of the bell rolled through the palace corridors like thunder. Raphael straightened, his hand resting on the back of a chair as the echoes carried from the city below. It was not the slow, solemn toll of a church. It was urgent, uneven, as though struck by a trembling hand. The guard burst through the doors. Your Grace, the city is in turmoil. Crowds are gathering before the palace gates. They say the queen is dead. Raphael's voice sharpened. She stands alive in this very palace. Who spreads such madness? Men loyal to the minister, the guard answered. They claim he has escaped and that your Grace seeks to seize the throne through her majesty. Raphael's blood ran cold. They move faster than reason. He turned to the captain of the guards who had followed. Seal every entrance. No one leaves the palace without the queen's mark. Where is she now? In the chapel, your Grace, with the maid and her physician. Then we go there. The corridors were alive with noise, servants whispering, courtiers hurrying like frightened birds. The queen's physician appeared from a side hall, his robes disordered. Your Grace, the queen has fainted again. The strain. She should not be disturbed. Even if the palace burns, she must not be left alone, Raphael said firmly. Take me to her. The physician hesitated, then led the way. They reached the chapel, a small sanctuary bathed in candlelight. The queen lay upon a cushioned bench near the altar, pale but breathing. Isabel knelt beside her, praying softly, her hands clasped around the queen's rosary. When she saw Raphael, she rose quickly. My lord, what is happening? The bells, the shouting. Lies, he said. The minister's men spread chaos to cover his escape, but they will not reach these walls. The queen stirred faintly. Escape? Raphael knelt beside her. Your Majesty, rest. I will find him and end this. She shook her head weakly. No, stay here. If they storm the palace, you are the only one they will obey. He hesitated. Then I will guard this chapel myself. Not here, the physician urged. The queen must be moved to safety. Raphael rose. Where? There is a passage behind the chapel altar, Isabel said quietly. I found it once when helping the sisters arrange the candles. It leads to the old crypts beneath the palace. The queen opened her eyes. Yes, my father's vault. Few know of it. Raphael turned to the guards. Prepare torches. We move now. Within minutes, the great painting behind the altar swung open, revealing a narrow stair descending into shadow. The air below smelled of stone and age. The queen leaned on Isabel's arm as Raphael followed with the torch. The passage wound deep beneath the palace, the walls damp, the air heavy with silence. At last, they reached an iron gate that opened into the crypt. Rows of marble tombs lined the chamber, the names of kings and queens carved in faded gold. We will rest here, Raphael said. No one will think to search this place. The queen sank onto a stone bench, breathing shallowly. Isabel covered her with her shawl. She is cold, she murmured. Raphael placed his cloak over her shoulders. The physician must return above. Find the captain of the guard. Tell him to hold the gates until dawn. The man hesitated. Your Grace, I cannot leave her. You must, Raphael insisted. Every man is needed above. When the physician had gone, only the three of them remained. The flickering light from the torches danced across the carved walls. Isabel sat beside the queen, whispering prayers. Raphael stood near the entrance, listening for sounds above. Minutes stretched into hours. The city's noise faded to a distant murmur. Finally, the queen stirred again. If I die, she whispered, promise me Spain will not fall to those men. You will live, Your Majesty, Raphael said, and the minister will not. Her eyes softened. You have given your honor for justice. Now give it for peace. She closed her eyes again, her breathing easing into sleep. Isabel watched her silently for a long time. Then she turned to Raphael. You believe she will recover? She has survived worse, he said quietly. Her will is stronger than her heart. And you? She asked softly. How much longer can your will stand? He smiled faintly. Until she is safe. The sound of footsteps above interrupted them. Voices echoed faintly down the stair, guards calling to one another. Raphael moved closer to the entrance, listening. They've found the minister's carriage, one voice shouted. Empty, no sign of him or his men. Another replied, The Duchess's apartments are open. She's gone. Raphael's pulse quickened. He turned to Isabel. Lucia has escaped. She rose, alarmed. To the city? Perhaps, he said grimly. Or perhaps here. Before she could ask what he meant, the iron gate behind them creaked open. Raphael spun around. Torch raised. A figure stepped into the light. Lucia stood in the doorway, her face pale, her gown torn at the sleeve. Her eyes burned with something between fear and fury. So this is where you hide your queen, she said, her voice echoing against the stone. Raphael froze. How did you— The passage, she said. Did you think I would not remember it? My mother served in this palace before you ever wore a sword. He took a step forward. Go back, Lucia. You have no place here. She laughed softly. No place? I have lost my husband, my title, my life, and you speak of place? Her gaze fell upon Isabel. And you, little saint. You prayed your way into his heart, didn't you? Isabel stood still, her hands clasped. I prayed for truth. Truth, Lucia repeated bitterly. You ruined me with your truth. The queen stirred at the sound of her voice. Lucia, she murmured weakly, what have you done? Lucia knelt suddenly beside the queen, tears spilling down her face. I only wanted to be seen, your majesty, to be more than the shadow of a noble name. He never loved me. No one did. Raphael's voice was quiet but firm. This is not love, Lucia. This is ruin. She rose, trembling. You speak of ruin as if you have not brought it upon us all. You stood before the court, declared me a traitor, shamed our name. And now, what are you? A man who hides in tombs with a servant girl. Raphael stepped between her and Isabel. Enough. Leave before the guards find you here. Lucia's eyes flashed. You would have me dragged through the streets? No. If I must fall, I will take you with me. She reached into her gown and drew out a small glass vial. Raphael recognized the faint shimmer of its contents. Lucia, he said slowly. What is that? Justice, she said. Or perhaps peace, the queen gasped. No. Lucia uncorked the vial. The same poison meant for the queen. Don Emilio kept it hidden. I took what remained. Raphael took a step forward, his hand outstretched. Listen to me. You can still live. You can still be forgiven. Her hand shook. Forgiven? When even God must turn his face from me. She raised the vial to her lips. Raphael moved, but too late. The glass shattered on the stones, and Lucia collapsed beside the queen's bench, her eyes already losing their light. Isabel knelt beside her, tears streaming down her cheeks. Oh God, have mercy. Lucia's hand found Raphael's. I only wanted to matter, she whispered. You did, he said quietly. You could have. Her lips curved into the faintest smile before her breath left her. The queen's voice broke the silence. May God forgive her, and may Spain find peace. Raphael closed Lucia's eyes gently. For a moment no one spoke. The torches flickered, casting long shadows over the marble tombs. At last the queen turned to Raphael. The council will be waiting at dawn. Go now. Bring the truth to them yourself. They will listen to no one else. He nodded slowly. And you, your majesty? I will rest here, she said. Isabel will remain with me. The people must see that I live. Isabel met his gaze. You will return? I will, he said softly. This ends today. He took one last look at Lucia's still form, then turned toward the stairs. The passage above was dim, the air cooler. Each step echoed like the beat of his own heart. At the top of the stair, a faint red glow spilled through the windows. He pushed open the door and stepped into the corridor. Through the tall arches he could see the city beyond the walls, Madrid burning under a crimson dawn, smoke rising where the minister's supporters clashed with the royal guard. The rebellion had already begun. The city shuddered under the glow of fire. From the palace balcony, Raphael could see the streets swarming with men carrying torches and banners. Bells rang without rhythm. Gunpowder smoked in the air. The rebellion Don Emilio had whispered into being now blazed openly. The captain of the guard approached at a run, his armor smeared with soot. "Your Grace, the minister's forces have taken the plaza. They shout the Queen's name, but claim she is dead. Some of our own men have joined them, demanding proof she lives." "She will live," Raphael said. "They will see her with their own eyes before this day ends. Ready the courtyard. We march at dawn." The captain hesitated. "And the Duchess?" Raphael looked past him toward the horizon, where the firelight met the morning sky. "May God receive her soul. Tell no one what has happened in the crypt." The captain bowed and hurried away. Raphael turned back toward the chapel passage, torn between duty and grief. Below in the hidden tomb, Lucia's body would already be at rest under the Queen's silent prayers. He forced himself to breathe, to think, to act. When he descended again, Isabel was waiting at the foot of the stair. She wore a cloak belonging to one of the Queen's attendants, her face pale from sleeplessness. "The Queen is resting. She asked for you." He followed her into the crypt. The Queen sat upright now, the color returning faintly to her cheeks. The candles burned lower, but her eyes were bright with resolve. "Your Majesty," Raphael said, bowing deeply, "the city is in revolt. Don Emilio's men hold the streets, but the people still shout your name. They only need to see you alive." The Queen nodded. "Then we must give them truth before lies swallow them. I will appear before them today." "You are too weak to stand," he protested. "I have stood for Spain since I was 12, she said. "I can stand 1 hour more." Raphael looked to Isabel for support, but she only whispered, "She will not yield." The Queen extended her hand toward him. "Help me dress. The people will not see me in mourning, but in power." By the time the sun rose fully, the palace square was filled. Soldiers loyal to the crown formed a barrier at the gates, while angry citizens pressed against them, shouting for justice, for answers, for the truth. Raphael stepped onto the balcony first. His voice carried across the square, strong despite the weariness that clung to him. "People of Spain, the Queen lives. The minister lies. Look to your sovereign, not to those who twist her name." A roar of disbelief rose from below, then silence as the Queen appeared beside him, leaning lightly on his arm. Her gown shimmered white in the morning light. When she lifted her hand, the shouts faltered into murmurs. "My people," she said, her voice steady despite its faint tremor. "You have been deceived by those who sought to divide you. Look upon me. I live, and I will reign in truth." A cry of "Viva la Reina" swept the square. The soldiers straightened, pride lighting their faces. For a moment, hope burned brighter than fire. Raphael glanced toward the edge of the crowd. There, half hidden behind a row of carts, he saw movement. Men in dark coats, their gestures urgent. He knew that posture, soldiers preparing to strike. "Your Majesty, back inside," he murmured. But before he could move her, a shot cracked through the air. The crowd screamed. The Queen flinched as the bullet shattered the marble near her feet. Raphael pulled her behind the stone balustrade. "Guards!" he shouted. "Secure the gates!" The captain's voice rang out below, ordering the charge. Loyal soldiers surged forward, scattering the rebels. The air filled with chaos, shouts, smoke, the ring of steel. Inside, the Queen caught her breath. "They would have killed me before the people," she said softly. "They would have ended the truth in a single moment." "They failed," Raphael answered. "But the city will not rest until Don Emilio is captured." "Then find him," she said. "Do not return until it is done." He bowed deeply. "I swear it." In the corridor outside, Isabel waited. "Is she hurt?" "No," he said, "but the city bleeds in her place." "Then I go with you," she said. He shook his head. "No, you must stay. Guard her with your life." "I have guarded her," Isabel replied. "Now I must guard you. If the minister's men find you alone, there will be no one to tell the Queen the truth." Her eyes met his with quiet determination, and he knew he would not change her mind. "Very well," he said. "But stay close." They left through a hidden postern gate at the side of the palace, mounted borrowed horses, and rode into the smoke-veiled streets. The sound of battle echoed in every direction. Shops were shuttered. The cobblestones glistened with spilt oil and fear. At the Plaza dell'Angel, they found a group of soldiers loyal to the Duke holding a barricade against the rebels. The captain saluted. "Your Grace." The minister was seen near the cathedral. His carriage broke through the western gate. "Then we ride there," Raphael said. "You, hold this line until the Queen's banner rises again." They galloped through the narrow streets, the bells tolling above them in a wild, uneven chorus. The closer they came to the cathedral, the thicker the smoke. When they turned the corner of Calle Mayor, they saw it. The minister's carriage overturned before the church steps. Its horses gone, the driver lying still beside it. Raphael dismounted. "Stay behind me," he told Isabel. The great doors of the cathedral stood open, the nave inside dark. He stepped across the threshold, his boots echoing against the marble floor. The air smelled of incense and gunpowder. "Don Emilio Vargas," his voice rang through the silence. "By order of the Queen, surrender yourself." A figure emerged from the shadows near the altar. The minister's once impeccable coat was torn. Blood stained his sleeve. "Still you chase me, Escalona," he said bitterly, like a dog after the hand that fed him. "You fed me lies," Raphael said. "Spain will not choke on them any longer." Don Emilio laughed harshly. "Spain belongs to men like me, men who know how to rule. The Queen is a child, you, her foolish knight. Do you think the people will follow you?" "They already have," Raphael said quietly. "They saw her alive this morning. Your rebellion dies with you." The minister's eyes flicked toward the doorway. "Perhaps, but you will not live to see her reign." He reached for the pistol tucked into his belt. Raphael lunged forward. The shot rang out, echoing through the nave, and the weapon clattered to the floor. The two men struggled, their boots sliding on the marble. Don Emilio struck wildly, but Raphael seized his arm, twisting until the man cried out in pain. "Enough," Raphael said. "You will stand before the Queen and answer for what you have done." The minister's strength faltered. His voice came ragged. "You think you've saved her. The moment she forgives you, they'll tear you apart. A servant's word against a noble sin. Your love is already your ruin." Raphael's grip tightened. "That is the last lie you speak." He bound the minister's hands with the cord torn from a curtain and called for Isabel. She entered cautiously, eyes wide. "He's alive?" she asked. "For now," Raphael said. "Help me take him back." They dragged Don Emilio from the cathedral, the distant roar of the crowd rising around them. Soldiers appeared from the smoke, saluting when they saw the prisoner. "Your Grace," one shouted, "the square is ours. The people have laid down their arms." "Then the city breathes again," Raphael said. "Send word to the palace. The Queen will hold council at once." By midday the fires had begun to die. The palace gates reopened, and the streets filled with weary citizens returning to their homes. The bells changed their song, slow, measured, almost peaceful. Raphael stood once more in the grand chamber of the court. Don Emilio knelt before the Queen, his head bowed. His arrogance was gone, replaced by the dull stare of defeat. The Queen's voice carried through the hall. "You have betrayed your country and your crown. What do you say in your defense?" The minister's voice was low. "Only that truth is never enough to rule a nation. Power is what endures." "Then yours ends here," she said. "You will spend the rest of your days far from Spain's borders. Let that be your punishment." She turned to Raphael. "And you, Duke of Escalona, what of your wife?" Raphael's eyes fell. "She sought forgiveness at the end, Your Majesty. Let her rest in silence." The Queen inclined her head. "So be it." Then she looked toward Isabel, who stood quietly near the doorway. "And the maid who began all this with courage, what shall be her reward?" Raphael spoke before Isabel could answer. "Freedom, Your Majesty. That is all she asks." The Queen smiled faintly. "Then she shall have it. From this day forward, Isabel Mejia is free, and her name is cleared of all blame." Applause rippled through the hall. Isabel bowed deeply, her eyes glistening. When the crowd began to disperse, she turned toward Raphael, uncertain whether to speak. He approached slowly. "It is done," he said softly. "Spain will remember your courage long after mine is forgotten." She shook her head. "Spain will remember truth. That is enough." He smiled, a weary, grateful smile. "Then come. The palace has seen enough sorrow. The Queen wishes you to rest in her gardens until nightfall." As they stepped into the courtyard, the air felt new, washed clean by the morning's rain. The banners hung still. The fires were gone. Isabel paused by the fountain, where the reflection of the sky shimmered like glass. She turned to speak, but before she could, the sound of hurried footsteps broke the calm. A young page ran across the marble path, breathless. "Your Grace! The Queen! She asks for you at once." Raphael's face tensed. "What has happened?" The boy hesitated. "She says it concerns the Duchess of Escalona." Raphael hurried back through the marble corridors, the sound of his boots echoing against the polished floor. The Queen's guards saluted as he passed, but none spoke. When he reached the royal apartments, the page led him to the Queen's private sitting room. Inside, the air was still. The Queen sat by the window, sunlight spilling across her pale face. On the table before her lay a folded parchment sealed with the crest of Escalona. She gestured for him to come closer. "This letter," she said quietly, "was found by one of the sisters in the crypt. It bears your wife's hand." Raphael hesitated. "Lucia's?" "Yes." She pushed it toward him. "Read it." He broke the seal and unfolded the paper. The handwriting was unmistakably hers, elegant, precise, and trembling at the edges. The Queen watched in silence as he read. "My husband will never forgive me, nor the world absolve me. But before I leave this life, I must tell him that he was right. The minister deceived me with promises of power I never truly wanted. I betrayed not only my crown, but the man who once believed in me. I did not mean to harm the Queen. The poison was meant only for myself, but he twisted it into a weapon. I see now the ruin I have made. Tell Raphael that I release him. Tell him I am sorry." Raphael's hand trembled as he lowered the letter. "She wrote this before she—" The Queen nodded. "Before you found her. It was tucked into the folds of her gown. The sisters brought it to me only this morning." He placed the letter gently back on the table. "Then she found peace at last." "Perhaps," the Queen said softly. "But so must you. Spain cannot afford a duke who lives in mourning. The people speak your name with gratitude. They will look to you again." "My duty is to you, Your Majesty," he said. "And so it shall remain," she replied. "But your heart must also find its place. Do not let sorrow chain it." He bowed his head. "You are merciful, my Queen." "Not merciful," she said, "only weary of pain." She looked past him toward the garden where Isabel waited. "That girl has suffered enough for truth. She should not linger between servant and exile. There are convents that would welcome her with honor, or estates that would call her lady." Raphael's voice was quiet. "I will speak to her." "Do so," the Queen said, "and then rest. The court will soon prepare for peace. You have given enough of your strength to war." He bowed deeply and withdrew. The palace felt different as he walked back through the halls, lighter somehow, though the weight of all that had happened still pressed against him. Outside, the sun burned clear over the city, its light glinting off wet cobblestones where the fires had been quenched. He found Isabel by the fountain where he had left her. She was feeding crumbs to a dove that perched on the stone rim. When she saw him, she rose quickly. "My lord," she said, "is it true? The Queen, was she in danger again?" "No," he answered. "It was not danger this time. Only memory." He handed her the folded letter. "Lucia wrote this before the end. The Queen wished me to show you." Isabel took the paper carefully, reading the words with quiet reverence. When she finished, she pressed it to her chest. "She was lost," she said softly, "but she tried to find light before she left." Raphael nodded. "Even the lost can teach us where the path turns wrong." They stood together for a while in silence, the sound of the fountain filling the space between them. At last, Isabel spoke. "What will happen now? The Queen will rebuild the council," he said. "Spain will have peace again. And you—" He paused. "The Queen offers you freedom. You may choose where you wish to go. The convent, the countryside, the city, anywhere." She lowered her eyes. "And what of you, my lord?" "I will return to Escalona. There is much to restore." "And after that?" "I do not know," he admitted. "Perhaps I shall learn to live quietly. Perhaps I will never stop hearing her voice." Isabel looked up, her gaze steady. "Then you must let another voice take its place." He met her eyes, uncertain. "And whose voice would that be?" "Not mine, if you do not wish it," she said gently. "But do not let silence rule you." Her words struck him deeper than she knew. He reached out, hesitating before touching her hand. "You have courage greater than most nobles I've known. The queen was right. You are the heart that kept truth alive." She smiled faintly. "Truth only survives when someone believes it. You believed me when no one else did." A bell tolled in the distance, soft, and even this time. No alarm, only the hour. Raphael looked toward the palace walls, where the banners of the crown fluttered clean and whole again. "The city is calm," he said. "It feels strange after so many days of noise." "Peace always feels strange at first," Isabel said. They walked together along the path that wound through the gardens. The orange trees were heavy with fruit. The air smelled faintly of rain and smoke. Servants moved quietly among the hedges, restoring order. Life was returning. When they reached the far end of the garden, Raphael stopped beneath the arch of ivy that opened to the river road. "This is where you must decide," he said. "Beyond this gate lies the world again. You are no longer a prisoner of anyone's will." Isabel looked toward the hills beyond the city. "I do not wish to leave Spain," she said, "but I do not yet know where I belong within it." "Belonging comes with time," he said. "Do not rush it." She turned to him, her expression tender but unsure. "And will you be content in Escalona, alone?" "Perhaps not," he said honestly. "But I will be true to what remains." For a long moment, neither spoke. The sound of the river below filled the silence. Finally, Isabel broke it. "If you ever need someone to remind you of what is true, you will know where to find me." He smiled faintly. "You think I would forget?" "No," she said, "but even the strongest hearts forget to listen sometimes." The wind shifted, carrying the scent of orange blossoms between them. He wanted to speak, to tell her that her presence had become the measure of his peace, but the words stayed unspoken. Instead, he took her hand once more and bowed over it. "May your days be free of shadows, Isabel Mejia, and may yours be full of light, my lord." They stood for another moment before parting, she toward the convent road that curved beyond the gardens, he toward the palace steps where duty still waited. By the time Raphael returned to the Queen's chamber, she was speaking quietly with her secretary. She dismissed him when Raphael entered. "Has she gone?" the Queen asked. "Not far," he said, "but far enough to begin again." "Good," the Queen said softly. "Spain needs more souls who know how to begin again." She studied his face for a moment. "And you, Raphael, will you remain my soldier or become something more?" "I will always serve you, Majesty," he said. "I know that. But I did not ask about service, I asked about peace." He hesitated. "I will find it when I am ready." The Queen smiled faintly. "Then you will find it soon. I have ordered a day of thanksgiving. There will be a mass in the cathedral tomorrow for all who fell in these dark days. You will stand at my right hand." "As you command," he said. She rose, moving slowly toward the window. "When the bells ring tomorrow, Spain will remember courage instead of fear. I owe that to you and to her." Raphael bowed his head. "We both owe it to truth." The Queen nodded. "Then let truth guide you home." He took his leave quietly. Outside the chamber, the palace was filled with the calm hum of life returning to normal. Pages running messages, maids laughing softly, the scent of baking bread drifting from the kitchens. The war had ended. He walked out to the courtyard once more, where the last of the daylight stretched across the fountain. Isabel's dove still perched there, alone now, drinking from the water's edge. He watched it for a long moment before turning toward the stables. As the gates of the palace closed behind him, he looked back once at the towers of Madrid shining gold in the setting sun. Then he rode toward the road of Escalona, unaware that behind him, in the Queen's chamber, a messenger had just arrived with urgent news that would bring him back to the city before nightfall. The messenger rode hard through the gates of Escalona as dusk settled across the hills. His horse was slick with sweat, its eyes wide from the long journey. Raphael, seated on the terrace that overlooked the valley, stood at once when he saw the royal seal upon the rider's coat. "From Her Majesty," the man gasped, dismounting. "Urgent." Raphael broke the seal of the letter, scanning the short lines. The Queen's hand was unmistakable, though hurried. "Return to Madrid, come before dawn. She has come back." There was no signature, no name, only those few words, and yet Raphael's heart began to race, as if it already knew their meaning. He gave no explanation to his steward, Only ordered a fresh horse and rode through the night. The air was cool, the road silver under the moon. His thoughts burned faster than his horse's hooves. He had left Madrid believing Isabel safe within the convent. If she had returned, there could be only one reason. By sunrise, the city stood before him again, its towers gleaming after the long weeks of turmoil. The soldiers at the gate saluted and let him pass without question. When he reached the palace, the Queen's guards were already waiting. "Her Majesty expected you, Your Grace," the captain said. "She is in the gardens." Raphael crossed the courtyard quickly, his boots brushing through the damp gravel. The morning air was filled with the scent of orange blossoms, the same scent that had followed Isabel the day she had walked away from him. He turned the corner and stopped. She was there. Isabel stood beside the Queen beneath the old fig tree, dressed not as a servant, but in a simple gown of pale blue. The Queen smiled when she saw him approach, then turned to Isabel and spoke softly. "My dear, I will leave you now. Spain no longer needs my witness for what is already written in the hearts of my people." She took Isabel's hand, pressed it once, and then walked away toward the palace, her attendants following. When she was gone, Raphael and Isabel were alone among the flowering trees. For a long moment neither spoke. The morning sunlight caught her hair, and her eyes held both fear and hope. "You came back," he said at last, his voice unsteady. She nodded. "The Queen sent for me yesterday. She said there was something unfinished between us. She said Spain would heal, but only when truth had peace." Raphael took a step closer. "And what did you tell her?" "I told her that truth already had peace," she said softly, "but that my heart did not." He stared at her, unable to speak. She continued, her voice trembling. "I tried to find quiet in the convent. I prayed, I sewed, I listened to the bells. But every sound was only an echo of your voice. Every silence was your absence. The Queen's messenger brought her letter, and I knew I could not stay hidden any longer." He moved closer until he could see the faint trace of tears on her cheeks. "You should have stayed," he said gently. "The world is kind to women who disappear." "I did not want kindness," she replied. "I wanted truth. I wanted to tell you that I am not afraid of the world, not anymore." Raphael's hands tightened at his sides. "You speak as if you owe me an explanation." "I owe myself one," she said, "and perhaps you need to hear it." He nodded slowly. "Then speak." She took a breath. "I loved you long before I knew it. When I was a child in your house, I used to hear you walking past the servants' hall at night. Your boots would strike the stone, and I would think, 'There goes the man who keeps his word.' Later, when the Duchess grew cold and the world began to whisper, I saw that you were still the same. You fought for truth, even when it broke your heart. How could I not love you for that?" Raphael's voice was barely a whisper. "Isabel, I thought it was wrong," she continued. "I thought love had no place between us. But then you stood before the Queen and called me innocent when no one else would. You risked everything for me. After that, I stopped asking whether it was wrong. I only asked whether I could be worthy of it." He reached for her then, but stopped himself. "You are more than worthy. You are the only thing left in my life that makes sense." Her eyes glistened. "Then why did you let me go?" He looked away toward the river. "Because I thought you deserved peace, and I have none to give. Peace is not found in silence," she said. "It's found in being where you belong." He turned back to her, his voice breaking. "And where do you belong, Isabel?" She stepped closer, her hands trembling slightly. "Where you are," the words hung between them, fragile as glass. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then Raphael reached for her hand and drew her gently toward him. "I have tried to be a man of reason," he said, his voice rough. "But you have undone me. I have loved you since the day you stood before the council and met my eyes without fear. Every hour since has been an echo of that moment." She pressed her hand against his chest. "Then do not let this moment echo. Let it live." He looked down at her, and for the first time in years, he allowed himself to smile. "You have given me back what I thought was lost forever." "What is that?" she asked. "Faith." The word lingered between them before he bent and kissed her forehead. It was a slow, reverent gesture, the kind that spoke more than words could. She closed her eyes, and he felt her tears against his hand. When he drew back, she whispered, "What will we do now?" "Now," he said, "we begin again." the Queen's voice carried from the terrace above. "Then begin well, Duke." They turned to see her watching from the marble steps, her attendants behind her. She smiled faintly. "I see now why God spared us. Spain needs love as much as truth." Raphael bowed. "Your Majesty," she lifted a hand. "No more titles between us today. I have one last order, and then I will trouble you no longer. You will not return to Escalona alone. You will take with you the woman who restored your honor. Let the people see that courage is the only nobility that matters." Isabel's breath caught. "Your Majesty," the Queen's smile deepened. "Do not thank me. Thank the man who risked everything for you." She looked at Raphael. "Will you marry her?" His voice came low but firm. "If she will have me." Isabel's answer came without hesitation. "Always." The Queen clapped her hands once. "Then it is settled. The court will witness it before sunset." By late afternoon, the palace chapel was filled with the quiet murmur of guests, courtiers, soldiers, and townspeople alike, all gathered under the golden dome. The air smelled of roses and candle wax. The Queen stood near the altar, radiant and serene as Raphael and Isabel entered side by side. Raphael wore the blue coat of his house, its silver buttons gleaming. Isabel's gown was plain but graceful, her hair adorned with a single white rose. When the priest began the ceremony, every sound seemed to fall away. Raphael took her hands, his voice steady as he spoke his vows. "You were the truth when the world was false, the light when honor dimmed. I give you my name not to bind you, but to walk beside you." Isabel's voice trembled only once. "And I give you my heart not as a servant, but as your equal. You saved my life with courage. I will spend mine giving you peace." When the priest blessed them and declared them husband and wife, the Queen herself stepped forward and placed her hand upon their joined hands. "Spain witnesses what courage can build. Let this union stand as proof that love is stronger than fear." The hall erupted in applause. For the first time since the war, laughter returned to the palace. That night a feast was held in the grand hall. Music filled the air, violins and tambourines mingling with the hum of voices. Raphael sat beside Isabel at the Queen's table, his hand resting lightly over hers. He spoke little, but his eyes never left her. When the musicians began a slower tune, the Queen leaned toward him. "Go," she said quietly. "Let the people see that the Duke of Escalona can still dance." He rose and offered his hand to Isabel. "May I?" She laughed softly. "I am no lady of the court, my lord." "You are more," he said. "You are my wife." He led her to the center of the hall. The crowd drew back as they began to dance. Slowly at first, then with growing confidence, the rhythm carrying them. The candlelight shimmered against her hair, and for a moment, the years of sorrow vanished. As the final notes faded, the crowd erupted again in applause. Raphael bowed low to her, but she drew him up and whispered, "Don't bow to me, my lord." "Not anymore," he smiled. "Then come with me before I forget what joy feels like." They slipped away from the hall, through the open doors that led to the moonlit gardens. The night was warm, the air heavy with the scent of blossoms. They walked in silence to the fountain, the same place where they had once stood as strangers divided by fear. Raphael turned to her. "I once swore to serve truth before all else, but now I see that truth without love is hollow. You have filled what was empty in me." She reached up, her fingers tracing the line of his face. "And you have taught me that love need not hide to be pure." He drew her closer, their foreheads touching. "I never thought peace would come through fire," he murmured. "Sometimes," she whispered, "fire is what refines gold." He smiled against her hair. "Then we have both been refined." The fountain's water shimmered in the moonlight as they kissed, a soft, lingering kiss that carried the weight of every battle, every silence, every prayer that had brought them to this moment. When they parted, Raphael whispered, "Tomorrow we return to Escalona. Will you miss the palace?" "I will miss the Queen," she said, smiling, "but I will not miss the walls." He laughed quietly. "Then we shall build new ones, of earth and sunlight and truth." "And love?" she asked. He brushed his thumb along her cheek. "Love most of all." They walked together toward the gates, the night stretching wide before them. Behind them, the palace bells began to ring, not in warning, not in grief, but in celebration. As they rode from Madrid the next morning, the Queen and her court stood upon the balcony watching them go. The people cheered from the streets, showering the road with petals. Isabel held Raphael's hand as the city faded behind them, her eyes bright with tears and laughter. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Home," he said. "And after that?" "Wherever peace leads us." The sun rose higher, gilding the hills in light. The road to Escalona stretched ahead, open and golden. Isabel rested her head against his shoulder, and he turned to look at her, his heart steady at last. "No crown," he said quietly. "No title, no army, only us." "And that," she answered, smiling through her tears, "is enough for a kingdom." The wind carried their laughter across the fields as they rode on, two souls finally free, the scent of orange blossoms trailing in their wake as the bells of Madrid rang one last time for love that had conquered everything. Thank you so much for listening to this story all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you liked the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories full of emotion and life lessons. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.